Today we're going to learn about quadrilaterals. So quadrilaterals are a polygon with four sides. So a shape that has four sides. So we have some different types of quadrilaterals that we're going to talk about. The first one is a trapezoid, which is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. So we can tell if sides are parallel if we see these little, sometimes it's an arrow, sometimes it's like a small triangle. So when they're on opposite sides, that shows us that those lines are parallel, meaning they will never cross. A kite is a quadrilateral with two pairs of congruent adjacent sides. And opposite sides are not congruent. So these two sides are next to each other, sharing a vertex, a point, and they are the same length because we see one tick mark each. These two sides here are touching, sharing a vertex, and they are the same length as each other. They have two tick marks showing those two sides are the same, but sides opposite from each other are not the same length. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with opposite sides that are parallel and congruent. So opposite sides are parallel, meaning they'll never cross. We'll see arrows, one arrow on the top and bottom showing that these sides are parallel, opposite of each other. Two arrows on the sides showing that those sides opposite are parallel, will never cross. And they are also the same length, opposite from each other. So one tick mark across on these sides showing they're the same length, two tick marks on the left and right side showing they're the same lengths. We also have some special kinds of parallelograms. So these shapes are still considered parallelograms, but they have a more specific name. So the first one is a rhombus. It's a parallelogram with four congruent sides. So all four sides are the same length. They are also parallel across from each other. A rectangle is a parallelogram with four right angles. So opposite sides are parallel and they're also congruent, but we have four right angles now. And a square is a parallelogram with four congruent sides and four right angles. So all four sides are the same length, and we also have four right angles. So it's more specific than a rectangle because the four sides are the same length. Okay, so let's talk about these shapes again. Quadrilateral is a polygon with four sides. The diagram shows properties of different types of quadrilaterals and how they are related. When identifying a quadrilateral, we use the name that is the most specific. So again, it's a shape with four sides. Any shape that has four sides, we can call, any polygon that has four sides, we can call it a quadrilateral. So first we talked about quadrilaterals being four-sided. So this one up here just has four sides. Then we go more specific. We have trapezoids, which is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. And we can see that the top and the bottom are the parallel ones. We indicate that with arrows. A parallelogram, well, let's talk about the kite next. A kite is a quadrilateral with two pairs of congruent adjacent sides and opposite sides that are not congruent. So we see here that these two sides have one tick mark, meaning they're the same length. These two sides have two tick marks, meaning those are the same length. Then we have a parallelogram, which is a quadrilateral with opposite sides that are parallel and congruent. So we see here, opposite sides, they're the same length, one tick mark, and they're parallel, so an arrow. Then the top and bottom, we've got two tick marks, meaning the top and bottom are the same, and two arrows, the top and bottom are parallel. Then we have our specific types of parallelograms. So a rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. So to be a little more specific, because we say parallelogram, that means 4 sides, so the opposite sides are equal and parallel. And then we also have those 4 right angles. So we see that these two sides have 1 tick mark, meaning they're the same length. These two sides have 2 tick marks, meaning they are the same length. And then we also have 4 right angles. So the box in the corner, remember, tells us it's a right angle, 90 degrees. Then we have a square, so that's a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. They are also, opposite sides are also parallel to each other. So if 1 tick mark on all 4 sides tells me all 4 sides are the same length, and 4 right angles, so we see that mark in the corner. Okay, and then we see our rhombus here is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So we see here that we've got 1 tick mark on all the sides, meaning that all 4 sides are the same. We don't have any right angles, so that's how we know that it's not a square. But again, opposite sides are going to be equal and parallel. So now we want to classify the quadrilateral, so we have to look at what each quadrilateral has and see which of these ones it fits into. So for A, I see 4 sides that are the same. So that narrows it down a little bit. And then I also see 4 right angles. So 4 sides that are the same, 4 right angles tells me this is a square. For B, I see 1 tick mark on these 2 sides, they're next to each other. 2 tick marks on these bottom sides that are next to each other. So when we've got 2 pairs of congruent adjacent sides, they're next to each other. Opposite sides are not congruent, that is a kite. Okay, we want to classify down here. So same thing, I see 1 tick mark on each side. 1 tick mark on each side. I'm gonna look at my options. The one with 1 tick mark on each side but no right angles, that makes this a rhombus. Okay, now here I see I've got these sides, a little hard to tell, have 1 tick mark. They're not parallel on the left and the right, but the top and bottom have arrows showing that they are parallel. So we have opposite sides parallel here, top and bottom parallel, and then nothing, we've got sides that are the same, so that's going to make this a trapezoid. We can tell that the top and bottom are not the same length, they're just parallel, so that also helps us determine that it's a trapezoid. And this one, I see 1 tick mark here, 2 tick marks on the top and the bottom, and 4 right angles. So opposite sides congruent, not all 4 sides, just opposite sides congruent and 4 right angles makes this one a rectangle. Okay, just like we learned with triangles, we have a rule for quadrilaterals. So that is the sum of angle measures of a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. So we see this quadrilateral here. They labeled the angles W, X, Y, and Z. So W plus X plus y plus z equals 360. So again, all angles in quadrilaterals add up to 360 degrees. So we can use that to help us find the value of x, to help us find a missing angle measure. So for my first example here, I have 3 angles that are given measurements and 1 angle that is x, and they want us to find the value of x. So just like we did with the triangles, we're going to add everything together and set it equal to the total. Now the reason that it adds up to 360 is because we can divide a quadrilateral into 2 triangles. So if I went from one corner to an opposite corner on any quadrilateral, it makes up 2 triangles. And we learned that the measurements of the angles of a triangle are always 180. So if I have 2 triangles added together, 180 plus 180 gives me 360. Okay, so just like we did when solving for triangles, we're going to do the same thing when solving for x for quadrilaterals. So I'm going to add everything together. X plus 115 plus 70 plus 75 equals 360. Now I want to combine like terms. So I'm going to combine 115 plus 70 plus 75. So we can use a calculator and we add those 3 together. We would have x plus 260 equals 360. And now I want to get x by itself, so I need to undo the addition by subtracting each side by 260. So a plus 260 and a minus 260 cancel each other out, and we're left with x equals 100. So x is 100 degrees. Okay, we can do the same thing for the next 2 examples. I want to add everything together and set it equal to the total sum of angle measures, which is 360. So x plus 100 plus 80 plus 100 equals 360. And I want to combine like terms. So 100 plus 80 plus 100 gives me x plus 280 equals 360. I want to get x by itself, so I need to undo the addition by subtracting 280 from each side. So a plus 280 and a minus 280 cancel each other out. We got x equals, we can use a calculator to help us out if we need to. 360 minus 280 leaves me with 80. So x is 80 degrees. Same thing here for number 5. So I'm going to add all the angles up and set it equal to the sum of angles of a quadrilateral, so 360. X plus 81 plus this symbol right here, it's a right angle symbol, so that tells me it's 90 degrees, plus 124 degrees equals 360. Now I combine my numbers, combine my like terms, 81 plus 90 plus 124, so we can use a calculator. We add those together, we get x plus 295 equals 360. And I want to get x by itself, so I subtract 295 from each side. So plus 295 minus 295 cancel out. And x equals 360 minus 295 is 65 degrees. So for this one, x equals 65 degrees.